This Mike Elias press conference is presented by your Baltimore area Toyota dealers. Better availability means better deals at your Toyota dealer. Shop now at buyatoyota.com. Now over to the GM in Dallas.
Happy to finalize the deals today with Tyler O'Neill and Gary Sánchez. Pretty clearly two profiles we had been seeking going into the offseason. First of all, they both bring tremendous amounts of right-handed power, and they're good against both sides of they're both righty and lefty pitching, but extremely productive. Tyler in particular against left-handed pitching, and that's something that you look at the composition of the rest of our team was a relative weakness. We have a lot of left-handed hitters, and particularly in the outfield with Colton, Cedric, Heston Kjerstad, who I think is going to get a big opportunity this year, Ryan O'Hearn. I think Tyler O'Neill fits in perfectly with that group. He's a good defender, and he can play center field if you need him to, but he's really good in both corners. He's a guy that can run a little bit here and there. He's still very young. He's 29 years old, and I think this was a very good roster fit, and something that we were lacking. And then Gary Sánchez, frankly, we needed another catcher with James McCann being a free agent, and I think it's a good profile to match with Adley, and he's a guy that throws well. It's good to have a Spanish-speaking catcher to pair with an American catcher. There's just a lot of things positive about bringing him into the mix. He's a veteran by now. He's been in the playoffs, and had a good season with Milwaukee last year and drew a lot of good reviews from their players and coaching staff.
Did Tyler's injury history give you guys any pause when you were making this decision?
Yes, it's certainly something you look at with any player, and he's. I think the injuries that he has had have been minor. They're things that have blown over, and we're hopeful we can keep him healthy. We're not asking him to play 162 games. And we'll take good care of him, and we'll have DH at bats available for him. We'll have days maybe we're facing a tough righty where he doesn't have to be in the lineup. I think it's somebody that brings a lot of talent to our roster, and he's a young guy, and I think he's had bad luck in some regard with some of his injuries, and I think going forward he's gonna bring us what we need, but we're not asking for the moon from him too. This is somebody that is somebody that we want to have a nice long relationship with, and we'll do our best to work with him and keep him healthy with his strength and conditioning and training routines.
How much do you envision him playing then if it's not 162? Do you see him as a near everyday guy in the lineup?
Yeah, but we don't ask anyone to play 162. I think we've got a real deep positional core right now, and we're going to be able, just as we've done, been able to rotate guys through the DH spot. We'll be able to give players off days, and I look at the depth of our 13 position players, the ones that are going to be competing for it. Really good group, just like it was last year, and I think last year we were reminded the hard way in the second half how much you really need that depth to get through a full season.
Was there anything specific in the reports you got on Sánchez that you liked, like improved defense or better contact skills? Anything underlying?
I think his defense has been improving continuously, especially in the last few years as he kind of matures into a veteran catcher, and he's changed some of his receiving tactics a few years ago. He's just getting to be a smarter, savvier player. He's got a lot of arm strength still, which I think is going to be really nice from that. We heard really good things about the way he was working with the pitching staffs, and like I said, I think it's not something you always have to do, but it's always good when you have one English-speaking catcher and one Spanish-speaking catcher. It's always a nice feature.
The walk rates for both Sánchez and O'Neill you mentioned, is that something that also attracted you to them because that kind of profile, needing to add that to the lineup?
Yeah, they're like a lot of power hitters. There's swing and miss, but they walk too. They manage good at bats. I think they're really going to help our offense, both of them.
With Cowser, you have a guy who was a finalist for the Gold Glove in left. O'Neill has played some right, but he's played a whole lot more left than right. I mean, would you anticipate that he would play, much more right than left?
No, I think you'll see him in both. I mean, I don't know how it's going to shake out where he ends up more, and I don't expect to rely on him too heavily in center field, but he can do that too. But I think we will see him in all three positions, but I think you'll see him in left and right. What the ratio ends up being, I don't know, but he can do both capably, throws well, still got speed, and he's a good defender, 2 Gold Gloves, and still a young guy. So we need more than 3 outfielders, and now I think we've got a really strong outfield mix.
You mentioned
Could you still sign another outfielder, or you're happy with this mix now?
I do definitely think we have room for more. We'll just, we're going to keep in touch with the market and see where it all falls. But obviously, this is a really big piece for the outfield.
You mentioned previously that the wall being moved back had come up in conversations before trying to recruit players. Did it come up in conversations coming back in with Tyler, or was there, do you think that it maybe played a small factor in being able to sign him?
I think it did. I mean, with both him and Gary, I was careful to send them show them the renderings of the new dimensions. I think if you're a right-handed power hitter, that's probably something you want to see. People like their hits going over the wall. So, it was definitely a part of the conversation as we were recruiting both guys.
So as far as the Rule 5 draft, and with your roster as fortified as it is, and you have only one opening, is there a chance that you might take somebody there?
There's a chance. I mean, there's a couple of players that we like in the draft, but to your question, I think it's more, do we want to devote a roster spot to a pick? When you do make one, you're not able to remove that pick from the roster until the middle of spring training. So it's a bit of a commitment, and whether we ultimately do that is something that we're debating, and we may not.
Like, there's been a lot made from people in the media about the spending habits of the organization since you've been general manager. Was it satisfying? I know $49.5 million isn't the biggest contract that's going to be handed out by a team this offseason. But was it satisfying for you to sign a player to a multi-year contract, to sign a player to a deal that's the biggest that you've handed out since you've been here?
Yeah, look, I think we're in we've had a lot of things leading to, increased spending, and it's been pretty continual the last few years, but this is another step forward. The rebuild emerging from that, having all the infrastructure in place and the farm system in place. Now we're focusing on the major league payroll, and we're having winning seasons, and the fans are coming back. But obviously, the robust new ownership group that has taken over are extremely supportive. And we identified a need with Tyler O'Neill and Gary Sánchez in a market with a lot of competition, a lot of buyers, and some not a lot of right-handed outfielders and not a lot of catchers of big major league quality. And so we were able to attack those needs pretty aggressively, and I credit their support in that. So it's something I hope we'll be seeing more and more and more of as the years go.
How do you assess an opt-out in a contract like this? And do you see that maybe as a win-win? Because if the player plays so well in 2025, then he might opt out. But if things go differently, then you still have him for 2 more years. How do you assess an opt-out?
Yeah, it's something that you weigh. I mean, there are, in your scenario, there are some nuances to that you can reap benefits from both sides. But it's a competitive market. Free agency is meant for the players, and in order to compete for players, sometimes you have to go extra years, extra dollars, and occasionally, including opt-outs and deals. So, it's not something that you just do willy-nilly, but in the right fit, right scenario, as we weigh the pros and cons of it, clearly it's not something that we rule out entirely.
Coming up on 1 year at the Dominican Republic Academy, how much do you feel like that facility has helped the team and just overall the efforts in that region since you took over as general manager?
We got a very good program now. Kobe and his staff doing a great job scouting. Matt Blood and Sam Vega and the guys that run our development down there, Anthony Villa, they're doing a great job putting in a nice program. I think the facilities, the not just the baseball facilities, but the living conditions, the food, the weight room, the parking, all that stuff. It's so nice to be there, and it's just a nice place for people to work. And I think that's important too. Like the staff is happy being there. People from the States, roving instructors, executives go down. It's comfortable. It's in a great location. I'm really looking forward to going back again myself this winter, and it's something that we're proud to show off.
Heston Kjerstad has been up and down a little bit through some injury career, dealt with a couple of injuries. He's never really had the opportunity to get full kind of everyday at-bats in the major leagues. Is it your hope that next season you guys can find a way for him to get near everyday at-bats?
Yeah, I think this is lining up to be a really good opportunity for him this season, and I think that's something that we've been hoping to do for him. He's second overall pick, great minor league resume despite a ton of adversity in terms of his injuries over the years. And then you look at his major league numbers too, and they're pretty good. So I think we've got a scenario now where he's got opportunity, but we're not going to have to overexpose him. And if there's a tough lefty that day, whether it's him or Cedric or Colton, we can give somebody a break. So I think our Tyler O'Neill signing is something where we were keeping Heston in mind.
You have seven veteran infielders, including Jackson Holiday, Elias, and Mateo. Where does Kobe Mayo fit in?
Kobe can play third, he can play first, he can DH. I think there's a lot of opportunity for him. He's still a young guy. He's yet to really establish himself in the majors, so he's not somebody that we want to put too much of a burden on right out the chute, but there's so many ways for him to fit into this lineup, and his bat could explode this year, and or at least take a step forward from his debut. And if that happens, we'll be sure to get him in the lineup.
Is moving him possibly to the outfield off the table?
It's something that we talk about here and there, and I just think with his lack of experience out there, with how big and tall he is, and with his infield skills, and with our outfield, it's not something that we've made any plans to advance. But he is athletic enough to do it. He's a good enough baseball player to do it. But it's not something that we're planning on pushing real heavily as of this time.
Is it your plan, is it your hope that Jackson Holiday is your opening day second baseman and can be an everyday player next season?
Yeah, I think it's going to depend on a lot of things, on the lineup, who's healthy, who's pitching, who's in that opening day lineup. But I think we're going to see a big step forward from Jackson this year. I thought he did a really good job being called into duty last year with all the injuries, kind of being thrust into an everyday role at such a young age in a playoff chase, with tons of infielders down, and not an ability for Brandon to match him up or give him off days probably as much as he would like. So such a young kid, such a great hitter. I think we'll see a big step forward for him. But this whole team, this whole roster, there's so many guys that deserve to be in the lineup, and we'll have the ability to mix and match. And it's hard for me to designate anyone as a everyday player versus a role player. I just think there's a group of 13. There are going to be 13 really talented guys on the roster, and we'll get them all in there with a lot of playing time. That's what tends to happen with good players, and not everyone's going to stay healthy all year, as we saw last year.
You're potentially losing some pretty big voices in the clubhouse. Coulomb, McCann, Santander, Burns. Do you feel like you have enough guys internally who can kind of fill that void and step up into those leadership roles?
I think we'll start to see more and more of that as the group of players that we've drafted and developed kind of age into being big leaguers and get more and more comfortable in the major leagues. When I got here, Santander wasn't a veteran, and he ended up becoming a veteran leader within a few years. It happens naturally, and I think importantly we have coaching staff, good culture of people that are positive and respectful, and that seems to roll over year to year. So I'm really looking forward to seeing this group of guys that we've been talking about throughout the rebuild start to become leaders in the big leagues.
The guy you traded for at last year's deadline, Trevor Rogers, after he finished the season with AAA, is there a way you could see him coming back and being a factor in the rotation at all in 2025?
Yeah, he'll be in the competition for the rotation. There's no doubt in spring training. We definitely want to bring a lot more than 5 pitchers into spring training. As we all know, there's no way that holds up over a full season. And, you kind of want to have 8 or 9 starters in a competition in most spring trainings. And he'll be right in the mix there. I think we knew when we traded for him, the innings totals that he had reached in 2024 were a lot higher than what he had done the previous seasons, and that can lead to some guys running out of gas down the stretch. So now that he's got that big innings platform from this year, and he's further removed from his injuries, I'm hopeful we're gonna see a good version of him in spring training.
Is there a spot for it maybe as a reliever down the line as well, or you're still viewing him as a starter?
Yeah, I think we'll sort all that out. I mean, we'll look and see who makes the opening week rotation, and we'll see the composition of our bullpen. The off season's not done either. We got several months left, and that's something that's going to shake out as health and performance evolves during spring training, but also see what we do the rest of the off season. And if there's a starter that doesn't make the rotation, it's obviously a possibility to put that player in a relief role.
When do you expect to have an announcement on your training staff?
I think it's something that we'll have well in advance of the beginning of spring training, obviously, but it's possible it comes before the end of the year.